Hello, Tampa. This is Jeff Stanislow. It is time to go low right here on AM 820, the Big Eight. We are picking up on our conversation from last week with our special guest, Emily Nowak, who is going to help us try to break 90, break 80, whatever you're working on. We dialed in a few things last week, Emily. Thanks for coming back.
Yep, of course. Happy to be back and help everybody out.
Yeah, so last week we talked about range sessions and we dialed in on the wedges and getting your distance down from what wedge, and we talked about the clock, know what your 54-degree wedge is going to do from 100 yards or 75 yards, where your position is, and really working on that. This week, I want to focus on another area that where your wedges come into play, and that is, around the green side areas, from the bunkers or just off in front of the green when you're, 5-10 yards away. And hopefully we can help our listeners, shave some more strokes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I think one of the most important things around the green is it's not flashy, but you see people putting all the time around the green. So putt whenever you can. And if you can't putt, look for a bump and run opportunity. So bumping and running that 8-9 iron. And if there's something in front of you, you have to loft that ball up, get it up in the air, then you can pitch the ball. But one of the biggest tips I have for around the green is try to keep that ball on the ground as much as possible. Putt if you can, bump and run if you can't, hit that higher shot if you have to.
Yeah, if you're a higher handicap, you kind of know, at least you have a good understanding of when you're putting the ball, how far it's going to go. You got some idea there. And keeping the ball on the ground gives you a little bit more opportunity to control your distance and even your line. As you're a lower handicap player, you see most of the professionals chip. They could just be a few yards off the green. And the reason why they chip is probably most likely because they know exactly what their wedges are going to do. They can
Yep,
control the
exactly.
spin. They can control what the release of the ball. They've hit thousands of wedge shots, over the years, and they really know what they're doing. But for the amateur, just keeping the ball on the green, especially if there's nothing in front of you and you're just a couple of yards off or on the fringe even, is a good way to do it. I completely agree with you. This is Jeff Stanislow. You're listening to another great episode of Let's Go Low. We're talking with our special guest, Emily Nowak. This episode is brought to you by Golfers Unite, golfersunite.com. And we're trying to, talk to our listeners about shaving some strokes for most average golfers. So, Emily, before we dive into a little bit more, maybe give us a little background on your experience in the golf industry. Just to recap for our listeners, you've been on a few times, and we always love having you on. But and then maybe some of the places that you worked and who you worked with.
Yeah, so I went to Ferris State University. I studied professional golf management, which as a result, you get your PGA membership. So I was a PGA professional for about 4 or 5 years. I've been all over the country. So I worked in Chicago, the desert out in California, Maryland, and really worked on teaching. So I would run clinics, I would run junior golf, worked at a junior golf academy. But I would say that my main focus in my clinics and in teaching was short game. So very passionate about short game. But yeah, so I was a full-time golf instructor out in Palm Desert, California. I worked at Palm Desert or Desert Willow Golf Academy, and that is with Desert Willow Golf Resort. And the instructor I worked with, he worked full-time with Sean Foley. So I had some pretty good instructors I worked under. I worked under a top 50 female instructor in Palm Desert as well. So a lot of good teaching mentors. So just trying to do my best to kind of expand that knowledge on the internet, on the radio, to reach as many people as possible.
Fantastic. Quite the experience that you have there, and you've done a lot of this training. So I hope our listeners can, I guess, understand where you're coming from, that you know what you're talking
Yeah.
about, and appreciate you doing that. So let's dive into it. A lot of amateurs, they bring multiple clubs to the green side. You know, some of them are using three woods. I've seen people actually bring out like a driver. I've seen people bring out 7 and 8 irons. I've seen people bring out their wedges, whether it's a 52, 54, 50, whatever, 58 even. You know let's just talk about the psychology between um you know playing your round and having a greenside shot, and then practicing. And I don't think that's a great way to really think about loading up the bag and bringing it to the greenside bunker. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, um, sorry, you mean just, sorry, can you ask that again?
Oh, no problem. Just a lot of amateurs bring a lot of clubs, or they work on a lot of different things in their mind around the greenside bunker.
Yes.
One of the things that we're trying to do as a lower handicap is maybe try to get them comfortable with the right club selection. So
Yeah.
instead of like guessing whether they're going to chip with their 3 wood this time, or use their putter, or a 56 degree, or what have you, just the mental state that they need to get to.
Yeah. So, I think first of all, you need to, if you're gonna pull out your driver, your hybrid green side on the golf course, it needs to be something that you practice. If that's your first time pulling that shot, probably not great. So yeah, I would think about what you're actually gonna do on the course when you're practicing. So yeah, I would say for your sand shot, something like a 60, something with a little bit of a higher bounce would be good. And then yeah, just think about what you're going to do on the course. So you can hit, I would recommend, you mean for like practice what we're bringing out? Sorry.
Yeah, for practicing, let's
Yeah.
just talk about practice right now. Get this cleared up. And we are just going to talk about, we're out on the range and we're trying to get better at chipping.
Yeah.
So let's start from that. Like, we're inconsistent chippers. We duff it, we skull it. And let's just talk about like what is maybe the most trusted club that they would bring, to practice and dial in, that gives them the most utility.
Yeah. So a lot of people like to avoid the higher lofted wedges. So something like a 60, especially like a 64. I know a lot of people see those coming out like on the Golf Channel. You see commercials for those. So I think a lot of people are really comfortable with like a 56 or something around that. It's kind of like a middle of the ground club. Do you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah, I kind of took the 60 out the bag for that
Yeah.
exact
I'm
reason.
unique. I love a 60 degree. I'm like, that's like my magic wand.
Yeah, I just open up the 58 a little bit more if I'm in a trap, but around the green,
Yeah.
I kind of just I've dialed in the 54.
Yeah.
So
So a lot of people, they either have three clubs that they hit differently, or they have one club they love that they can hit different shots with. So yeah, so like you have your club, I like my 60, I can hit the lower shots, the higher shots, kind of figure it out. So yeah, it's really around the green, it's a real feel kind of thing, like with putting. So yeah, so you kind of choose if you want your one club you love or your multiple clubs that you hit different shots with. But generally, people like to stay away from those higher lofted wedges for consistency.
yeah, and part of the reason why is I was working with our club pro, and they just said the 60 degree or higher is just it's a difficult shot meant for lower handicaps. A lot of people, if they're not taking the perfect swing, they'll tend to ground it or chunk it, or they blade it, and then it skulls
Yeah.
over
Yeah,
the.
you really have to nip it perfectly. But if you really have that feel, then yeah, you can start experimenting with those higher lofted clubs. But yeah, so generally the three different shots are actually very easy to hit. So there's the low shot, there's the middle tier shot, and there's the high shot. And literally all you have to do to hit those different shots is take that wedge in your hand and move the ball position. So start with the club off your, or start with the ball off your back foot, take that smooth stroke, nice wedge or a nice chip shot, see how low that goes, then move the ball up to the middle of your stance. That's going to go a little bit higher, and then play it off your front foot and watch how high that goes. So it's pretty easy to hit those 3 different shots with one club if that's what you're looking to do. Pretty much all you have to do is change that ball position, back, center, forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kind of where we were getting to. We took a little detour there for a minute, but that's kind of the direction that I think our listeners really need to hear. This is Jeff Stanislow. You're listening to another great episode of Let's Go Low right here on AM 820 every Saturday morning on the Big 8 radio, brought to you by Golfers Unite, golfersunite.com. If you guys want to check it out, we've got great deals and opportunities with the hookups, free memberships, golfersunite.com. So you talk about the stance and ball position and the flights, and that's a really good thing that someone can practice. They can take one club, let's say it's their 56 degree. They can go out there and they can play the ball off the back of the stance. Now that's going to give them a little bit lower trajectory and probably a little bit more spin, right? Middle of the stance should give you a medium trajectory with a little less spin, and then your higher trajectory, I guess, depending on how you do it. If the ball is up on the front part of your foot, if you're a righty, that'd be up on the left foot. That's going to give you highest flighted ball, lands the softest. As an amateur, you're probably not going to see it stop and spin backwards because you're not taking that really quick, crisp swing.
Yeah.
But you will see it go up in the air and it'll land softer with a less of a release. Is that a good summary of that?
Yep, exactly. So all the way back will run out a little bit more. It'll check, but it'll run out. Yep, and then all the way forward will land super soft and hopefully stop if you have a nice flight on it. But yeah, you can see those pros. They nip those ones forward really nicely. They get those high shots. They spin nicely. You probably won't quite get that, but it just moving that ball in your stance, it really makes you feel like a pro when you're an amateur just watching the different ball flights. So yeah, the goal is to take the exact same swing for each of them and just kind of watch how they fly differently.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we got a lot more to talk about, so we're going to actually take this whole chipping thing into another segment as well. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk about your weight and how it impacts, your chipping around the green.
Yeah, so when you address the ball, you want 75 to 80% of your weight to be up front, and it needs to stay there. We don't want to sway our body. We don't want to get it stuck on the back foot. We want to feel that weight we want to feel that weight forward and it stays there. And this really helps us with impact. It helps us just nip it right off that turf. And the biggest mistake that you really see people make is moving that weight backwards and leaving it there, because then you're just chunking it, you're hitting the ground before. So no body movement, keep that weight forward throughout the whole swing and you'll make such great contact.
Yeah, it's really important, and that message for a mid to higher handicap is so important to keep that weight forward. As soon as if you sway back a little bit, it changes where you're going to hit the ball, and that's where you get a lot of those chunks or a bounce skull, that goes across the green. So
yeah, who knows what's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, the chipping stroke is not complicated. We have plenty of instruction on our page going over it, just the basics, but dial that in and yeah, those strokes will fall off your game.
Yeah, and Emily, thanks for mentioning that. You can check out Emily does tips and lessons on Golfers Unite socials. You can check it out at When Golfers Unite on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. You can actually watch Emily do that. We have links on our website, golfersunite.com, to all those. So Emily, as we kind of come to a close on this one, and we'll pick this back up and we'll do another episode on chipping, because at the end of the day, we've talked about, this is where amateurs shave strokes, right here around the green, You can take a chunk or a skull away and, get to a very functioning, 2-putt cadence. And we'll talk about putting in an upcoming episode here. Maybe we'll do all 3 this weekend and let you steal the show. But anyways, I can't tell you and implore you enough to, get out there to the range and practice your chipping. Solidify what club that you want to do. Depending on your skill level, the lower the club degree. So like, you may want to, use a 48 or a 50 to start that. And then as you get better, you can change your degrees of lofts. But the ball position is the most important thing that people need to really think about, and their weight being forward. When we pick back up, we're going to talk about the grips and your turns and flips and, things of that nature. So, Emily, thanks for joining us once again.
Yep, of course. It was great coming on, and I'll be talking to you guys again soon.
That's it for this episode of Let's Go Low right here on AM 820. This is Jeff Stanislaw, your host. And thank you to the Big 8 820 again for hosting us. And thank you, Tampa, for tuning in.